Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on Monday, June 14, 2021 at 6 o'clock. If you would please and join me for the invocation. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for another day that you've blessed us to live for. Lord, just ask you to be with us now as we conduct the county business. Lord, thank you for those who are here to share it with us. And Lord, just ask you to give them safe travels on the way back home. Lord, thank you for the many blessings you've given to us. And we ask you to forgive us if we fail you. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Please continue standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask for the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. We now move to our comments, public comments. Each speaker will be allowed 4 minutes in the public comments. If you will, when I call your name, just state your name, your address. We have one tonight, Mr. Savarsi.
My name is Sri Ananda Sarvashri. I live at 1060 Tyler Road in Walnut Cove. I'm talking about Insight 4. For years, I've promoted a new paradigm for Stokes County. Presentations to make Stokes County the happiest, healthiest, greenest county in the nation. I've expanded the concept to create heaven on earth in Stokes County by providing insights into how it can be done practically. Today I'm presenting insight number 4, resilience to catastrophe. We live in a time of amazing technologies, but as we discovered recently with the Colonial Pipeline shutdown, our system is very fragile. Everything we require is delivered just in time to minimize large inventory costs. If the supply chain breaks, we could lose essentials such as food and fuel within days. We have no resiliency. An unforeseen event could lead to catastrophe. Our system has one huge weakness, our electrical grid. If we lose electricity, everything fails. No electricity means no fuel, no food, no crops, no water, no medicines, no hospitals, no phones, no communications, no internet, no radio, no TV, no stores, and especially no heat. We would instantly be pushed back to the Stone Age. The Texas ice storm demonstrated how a catastrophe can stop our whole civilization. What could bring down the grid? Obviously, a cyber attack could take it down just like it did the pipeline. The physical destruction of only 10 substations could take down the whole country. A nuclear EMP, electromagnetic pulse, would take down the grid and fry virtually all electronics. But one certainty, within a few decades, perhaps sooner, is a CME, a coronal mass ejection from the sun. A CME is a large expulsion of plasma and magnetism from the sun's corona. In 1859, before we had an electric grid, the sun blasted a powerful CME that directly hit Earth. It's known as the Carrington event. It set telegraph lines on fire. If one hit today, scientists say it would fry the grid and could take up to 10 years just to replace our custom-built high-voltage transformers. There are no backups. Imagine being without electricity for a decade. We would lose all facets of modern life. Within 90 days, everyone in Stokes County would starve to death. We have no resiliency. Perhaps the Amish would survive. I propose that we store grains, legumes, and other basic foodstuffs in every home, neighborhood, town, and city. People must know that they will not starve if the grid goes down. Otherwise, there will be chaos and violence. It would be hell. Roving gangs would be uncontrollable. Everyone should know that food and shelter is available, so they feel safe and secure. No one should have to suffer starvation. It is the duty of our governments to protect the people. I also propose that we create emergency resilient structures where we can take shelter just as we created bomb shelters in the 60s. I propose that the building department exempt such resilient structures from all permits and inspections, since they will not be connected to the grid or utilities. As an engineer with a degree in engineering physics, I've been developing such structures to house the homeless and answer the need in developing countries. I would be happy to work with the building department to suggest ideas for resilient structures that could be shared with all citizens of Stokes County. In the handout that I've given you, I've listed several websites to learn more. Please take a look at those resources. Insight number 4 is also available at rebuildhealth.com/heaven. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now move on to our comments from our commissioner and manager. Start with Commissioner Morris.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, just like to welcome everybody out tonight to participate in our local government, and that goes for those on the live stream as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barnacus.
James here, welcome everybody. Great to see the citizens come out and get involved. Just like to send a special thought prior to the folks over in the Sandy Ridge, Lostville, and Pine Hall area. We had a bad storm to come through this afternoon. There's a lot of damage over our houses, damaged trees, down power lines, and just keep these folks in your thoughts and your prayers.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mendenhall.
Thank you, and thank you once again for coming out and being a part of our governmental process tonight. We appreciate it so much. Sometimes if you don't come out and express your opinions or concerns, we are not aware of it, and we do appreciate it very much. And for anybody that is watching this live stream on YouTube, I also would like to welcome you and say thank you for being a part of our meeting tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir. Commissioner Cox.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here and participating tonight and coming out, and the ones watching at home. I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat, so the more I talk, the more I cough. So my comments might be limited tonight. Y'all are in luck.
Thank you, ma'am. It's also good to see everybody here. Hope your time spent well. Even though some of us did come through the storms, like Commissioner Barney Castle mentioned, I actually lost power before I come here. So hopefully get that back on soon. With that, I'll turn that over to our county manager, Mr. Oakley.
Good to be here, and I hope everyone is well, and everyone continues to stay well.
Thank you, sir. And I'll ask for a motion on the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
In discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now move on to our discussion agenda. Item A, offer to purchase tax surplus property. Ms. Calinda Pruitt.
Good afternoon. Mr. George Wilson came by my office a few weeks ago and has placed an offer to purchase on a piece of property that the county acquired in 2015. And it is lot number 2 at Hanging Rock Forest. The D-Book and page is 663 at 894. He's made an offer of $1,000. And if the board is okay, I would like to put that offer out to see if anyone else would like to do an upset bid or anything. We'll run it in the newspaper and on the website for 10 days to see if anyone else would like to make an offer.
Any questions or comments on it?
No, I'm good with it.
Does it need to be on action tonight?
If we can go ahead and move it for me to go ahead and proceed, that would be great, because I can send it on to the newspaper and they can get it in there this week.
Okay. How's the board feel?
Good.
We'll move it to action tonight is item F.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenda. All right. Move on to item B, the Leak Creek fencing modification. Who do we have here for that? Okay, if y'all would just come on forward. I don't think I got the names down here. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Karen Kimmerite, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Fox Rothschild in Raleigh. And I have several people here with me this evening from Pine Gate Renewables who are available to speak and answer any questions as well. So I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is Lick Creek Solar LLC and Pine Gate Renewables. And what I'd like to do is to provide some information to the board about the additional information about the wildlife permeable fence that Pine Gate Renewables is asking for permission to be able to install around the solar farm. And I'm aware that there was a previous hearing before the board, and I was not present at that hearing. But I was made aware that the board had requested and was looking for some additional information about what this wildlife permeable fence would look like, and also some additional information to ensure that the wildlife fence that will be surrounding the solar farm will ensure that the solar farm will be safe and will be secure. And so thank you for having us back this evening so that we can provide that additional information. So what I'd like to do is just provide some brief comments to provide an overview and some general information about the project and the fence. And Matt Eaker is here, and he's going to speak after I'm done providing this information, and he's going to provide some more detailed information about the fence itself and the area surrounding the solar farm. And as some just very general background, I think as the board well knows, the county approved the rezoning of the property to light manufacturing district so that the 50 megawatt solar farm could be constructed on the property. And that rezoning was approved by the commissioners on October the 1st of 2019. And I think as the board also knows, the solar farm is located partly in the town of Walnut Cove and then also partly in the jurisdiction of the county. And we have already requested permission from the town of Walnut Cove to make the modification to the fence, and that has already been approved. And so one of the reasons that we are here before the board asking for the modification to the fence is so that there can be consistency between the fence that will be in the town of Walnut Cove jurisdiction and then within the county. And so the county's ordinance, the zoning ordinance, doesn't have any specific requirements for fencing around solar farms. And so the reason why we are before the commissioners this evening is because the site plan that was included with the application for the rezoning showed an 8-foot tall chain link fence. And so in order to make a modification to that fence, to modify it from a chain link fence to this wildlife friendly fence, we have to obtain permission and authorization from the commissioners. And the other reason that, in addition to wanting to have consistency between the fence in Walnut Cove and in the county, the other reason that we are looking to make this change is because Pine Gate has been making final plans for the construction of the solar farm, and they had been looking for ways to improve the project for the county. And so what a real improvement for the project will be to substitute the plans for the 8-foot tall chain link fence for the 8-foot tall wildlife friendly fence. And since the zoning ordinance doesn't have any requirements that would require a chain link fence to surround the solar farm, we don't need a variance from the commissioners. So this wildlife permeable fence is, I think, very important because this is a large project, and the wildlife-friendly fence will be able to better protect wildlife in the area. And what this fence will do, and Matt Eaker will also be providing some information to the board about this, but the fence will allow the wildlife in the area to more easily pass through the fence and into and through the solar farm. And the wildlife-friendly fencing has been an effort that has been implemented between Pine Gate and then the North Carolina chapter of the Nature Conservancy. And it's this effort to better protect wildlife in the areas where solar farms are being developed. And Pine Gate began using wildlife-friendly fencing in 2018. So far, it's been done on a relatively limited basis, but the thought is that this would be an excellent project to install the wildlife-friendly fencing because it is a large solar farm. Pine Gate has installed the wildlife-friendly fencing on a solar farm in Moore County and then another one in Johnston County. And the fencing, the way that the fencing will work is that at the bottom of the fence, there are about 6-inch holes that will better allow animals to pass through the fence than would be possible with a conventional chain link fence. And the Nature Conservancy has been monitoring these wildlife-friendly fences, and they have installed cameras along the 2 fences in North Carolina so that they can monitor the effectiveness of the wildlife permeable fences. And the data that the Wildlife Conservancy has is that the wildlife-friendly fences are very effective in allowing small animals to cross through the fence. And so I'd like to move on and talk about the appearance of the wildlife permeable fencing. And we have got in the notebooks that we've passed out under the first tab, there are some pictures of these of solar farms that have the wildlife-friendly fences in Moore County and in Johnston County. There's also a picture of a solar farm in Bowman County, South Carolina. And then plus there's some pictures of these types of fences and solar farms across the country. And then what I was told is that the board had some questions about whether this type of fencing would provide adequate security and ensure safety for the solar farm. And so I'd like to address that now. So first of all, I'd like to point out that it's going to be very difficult for anyone who wants to trespass to enter the solar farm. This solar farm is well buffered with railroad tracks and also a transmission line around the solar farm. The northern portion of the solar farm is surrounded by railroad tracks, and then the southern boundary has high voltage transmission lines. And then in addition to the railroad tracks and the transmission lines, there will also be quite a bit of landscaping that will be installed around the entirety of the solar farm. And under the second tab of the notebook, we have pictures of what the landscaping will look like once it has been installed. And then, of course, there will be gates to allow authorized personnel to enter the solar farm, and all of the gates will, of course, have to be locked. And then after the last hearing, we spent some time thinking about ways that we could also potentially further modify the plans to address any concerns about safety or security that the board might have. And there is an area, and Matt is going to be talking about this in a minute. There's an area along the southern boundary that borders a public road and a park. And what we'd like to propose to the board is if this is something that the board would like, we could install chain link fencing around that stretch or that segment of the solar farm, since there is a public road and a park in that area. So if that is something that the board would like, that would seem to be appropriate in our opinion. And so in regard to safety and security, the wildlife fence meets all of the safety requirements of the National Electric Code. And under the second tab of the notebook that we passed out, we have a letter from Chris Sandifer, who is a registered professional engineer with 12 years of experience in the solar industry. And he's provided information in his expert opinion that the fencing requirements for solar farms, that the wildlife permeable fence meets those requirements. And specifically, it meets section 110.31 of the National Electric Code. And because the fence will be 8 feet in height, it fully complies with the National Electric Code. And so even if a trespasser were to climb over a chain link fence or this wildlife permeable fence, the solar farm will be safe and secure even for trespassers. All of the high voltage equipment in the solar farm, for example, the transformers and the inverters, will not be accessible to the public. The high voltage conductors will be secured in locked boxes. And in order to access those boxes, you have to have a special key to open them. And so, the fence meets the National Electric Code, and the safety and security measures will be in place on the site. So we are respectfully asking that the board allow us to install this wildlife-friendly fencing because it's not prohibited in any way by the ordinance, because it will be beneficial to wildlife into the area, and because the solar farm will remain safe and secure as surrounded by the wildlife-friendly fencing. And so Matt Eaker with Pine Gate has some information that he'd like to provide to show you what this fence will look like, and also to provide some information about the site plan for the solar farm. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for your time. Glad to see everybody again. I know last time the question was raised, what size are the holes? And I could not give a clear and direct answer because they are progressive holes. The larger ones go at the bottom, obviously, to help the wildlife pass, and the smaller holes are at the top. It starts out as a 6-inch wide by 7-foot tall hole at the bottom, and then progressively goes to 6-inch, 5-inch, 4-inch, 3-inch wide up top. Happy to leave this here if anybody wants to look at it closer. Otherwise, I'm going to set it to the side. Hold it up, set it to the side so nobody trips over it. Excuse me, Rex. Excuse me. And then I'm going to step over here so everybody can see. As Ms. Karen mentioned, the Stokes County portion of the project is to the right of this line. We do recognize the board's concern about safety of the general public. The closest thing I could find is the park here, the baseball park, Stokes County, and then there's neighborhoods that follow down Burton Loop down this way. The majority of the residents we see are on the MLK neighborhood, that's west of this line in the Walnut Cove area. But from east to west, this project, this area, main area, will span about 1 mile east to west, and it's a half a mile north to south. My perimeter footage for this large piece is 23,936, roughly 4 miles of fence. And that's why we feel it's critical to install this wildlife-friendly fence so it does not create a boundary or border, an impassable object for the wildlife. Like Ms. Karen spoke about, this black line is the railroad track that borders the project on the north, as well as a railroad track that borders the project on the south. All this outside of the project area is still heavily wooded. And we have some wetlands to the west and a creek and additional wetlands to the east as well as the south. Growing up in North Carolina, climbing trees, playing in the mud, what do I see in wetlands? Wildlife, wildlife, wildlife. Some of it's furry, some of it's scary. But just wanted to highlight the area in question, this large area that we would like to do the wildlife-friendly fence, and then circle this area here adjacent to Burton Loop and that baseball park that we'd like to offer up the 8-foot chain link fence for y'all's peace of mind. Anything I'm missing?
No, but Matt and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So we appreciate having us back and considering our request further.
Okay. Any questions or comments? I do have some few questions. So as far as the woven wire fence right there that's going up, will that be attached to metal post, wood post, T-post, round metal post?
Yes, sir.
So you're going to have a 9-gauge aluminum tie wire holding it to the post, correct?
That I can't speak to.
It is. That's the only thing you can put around it.
Okay.
It's a 9-gauge aluminum tie wire. Have you noticed along the highway or on the state, how they got the woven wire fence and you see wood posts that are down through where, if you go into Virginia, you'll see like the studded T-post. The reason for that is so the wire don't slide down. In the wood post, you got a staple in it to hold it. In the T-post, you got ridges right there to help that wire keep from falling down. Now, the problem of a wire like that on a round wood post is it slides down. So anybody can kind of get on over a tree limb, falls on it, that top wire, and I'm guessing it's 7 gauge on top, is that correct?
It should be 12 and a half.
Okay, so you got a 12.5 gauge wire all the way down, which is very flimsy, compared to a 8 foot tall 9 gauge chain link fence, which is a big difference in sturdiness, correct?
I'm with you. I believe we do have horizontal members as well that could hold that from sagging.
Okay, say it one more time now.
There are horizontal gate frame structures that will hold the fabric up as well.
Yeah, probably at the gates, but as I'm seeing right here in the picture, if it's showing right here between the line post, there is nothing there, just a wire up to the post, am I correct? That's what it's showing here in the picture.
That's not my understanding of how we install it.
Okay, so what all is it installed with?
I understand it's framed out like with normal gate material, and then that's just the different fabric that attaches to the frames.
Okay, so the spec before, did y'all have top tension wire, 7 gauge tension wire, or was it 1 5" top rail?
Sir, you're asking some technical questions that are beyond my expertise at
Okay.
this time.
All right. Another thing is, as far as, and I take it, I mean, you're in Stokes County, so nothing around here is completely flat. You got some places that are just wide open flat. Most places around here is a bunch of hills.
Yes, sir.
So as far as going up and down hills, and you can kind of see right here in this picture that it shows the fox going through, that the wire is still kind of loose. The main reason for that, because in chain link you can pull tension on it. It'll actually shrink down some, but you'll still maintain that feet and it holds that tension where you can't squeeze diamonds. This right here is impossible to get tight, so it causes a problem sometimes. But when was the fence originally installed, like in Moore County and other places?
2018?
I think so. Rex Young. There's also a recent project in Yadkin County as recently as 2 months ago. We installed this on a larger project there as well.
Okay, and they approved it back in 2018?
I don't know when, I can't recall when the approval was for that project. I actually think it was earlier this year.
Okay. Was that the first one that went up that you guys know of this type fence?
No, sir.
All right, when was the first one?
I believe the Moore solar project, the Moore County project, might be the first, but I'm really not sure the very first one, to be honest with you.
Okay, was it before 2018?
No.
No?
No, it would have been after 2018. That's when this idea, this collaboration with the Nature Conservancy originated. So I think it would have probably been in late 2019 would have been one of the first ones to actually hit construction and make use of this fencing type.
Okay. And I apologize, when did y'all first come here and introduce this to us?
This would have been in, I believe we would have been before the planning board here in September of 2019, and then we came before this board on October 1st, 2019.
Okay, all right. So, and the thing that we got to explain to our citizens is why the change. Because very obviously, you can look at that, you can get a section of 8'9" chain link, 2-inch mesh, and you can see the difference between the two. You know which one's going to last longer. You know which one's going to be more secured. So that's what was presented to, besides the two new members on the board, to the Board of Commissioners then, that you guys were going to put up an 8-foot tall, 9-gauge chain link fence, which is very sturdy, and we know for a fact from any manufacturer, if we got 20 years warranty on that without any rust. Don't believe that material right there has got it on there. The biggest thing that I see it on there is you've got some huge squares in there where, you know, there's a concern that a kid can climb this. Now, if you're going around the perimeter of Stokes County, like I said, out here in the woods, my youngins do it too. They take off, run down the woods, see something interesting, they're going to go for it. Chain link fence, a little bit harder to climb unless you're getting right there somebody to help you. Even with a kid's shoe, it's hard to fit into a 2-inch triangle. Or diamond, excuse me. But, you know, that's kind of all I had with it. If y'all had any more follow-up or questions or concerns on it.
Sir, it does sound like, if I'm understanding correctly, one of the biggest concerns here is the long-term maintenance of this type of fencing and whether it will, hold up over time if a tree were to fall or something like that. And we, maybe Karen here can help fashion some language and use her lawyer skills better than I can, but we'd be happy to offer a condition for a routine or regular at an interval that pleases the board for an inspection or we and we expect the facility as we presented it to you, regardless of whether this is a condition form that you formally want to put on the approval, we take it as our responsibility to uphold that site and maintain it and it has to continue meeting these conditions in our site plan for the life and the duration of the facility. This is really just an effort to be a better neighbor. Some of the comments that we get from members of the public when we have, as Tom Terrell outlined at the last hearing, when these projects have gotten bigger over the last few years, is that they consume a fair amount of habitat. So we're just trying to respond to both the concerns of neighbors that come to our community meetings when we meet with them, as well as, we want to explain to the board what we're asking here. Which is really to just be a better neighbor, not only to those residents, but to the wildlife that lives near there as well.
And I understand. I can tell you, squirrels, foxes, everything else will find a way under a chain link fence too. I love animals just as much as anybody else, but I am more concerned about a child or anything like that getting in there. And that's an open invitation. And of course, anybody wants in bad enough, fence is just for an honest man to stay out. That's all it is. So, they'll find a way to cut through. That stuff right there don't take much to cut through. 9-gauge fence, it takes a little more work, and, as I say, most time they mess with it, they won't mess with it again. So.
And we're going to be, so Pine Gate's going to be responsible for maintaining the fence no matter what, but I can work with the board to provide a condition that will, just provide transparency about the obligation to inspect and then maintain and repair the fence if it needs to be.
Okay. And the biggest reason for the change is because of the wildlife, because y'all originally presented to us chain link. Y'all knew about this fence, or the company knew about this fence before that time, so it wasn't put in. So
I joined in January and I heard about this initiative along with our bee habitat pollinator program, along with our sheep grazing program. I like going that extra mile. And I asked Rex and our development team to dive into this to see if we could make this project one of the first ones for 2020 that had this new fence. We're seeing our competitors use it. My fencing contractor is seeing this stuff fly off the shelf more and more. Even going to 4-foot fence with different locking mechanisms inside the site. I didn't want to go that aggressive.
And what do you mean by different locking mechanisms in the site? What do you mean now?
I can put lock and key under all the equipment inside the site, make the equipment more secure, and then only need a 4-foot fence at that time. Per the NEC, I understand different areas have zoning requirements. But, to date, I'm filling up my 15th dumpster of tires today that we're finding in this area. So with it being bookended by natural wetlands, the railroad tracks, and these transmission lines, I feel like we're doing a great service for this piece of property, not only cleaning it up, but putting in a facility that's going to generate clean energy. I want to go that extra step and help the wildlife out. I don't want to get a call from my O&M guys saying that a deer tried to jump and caught the razor team on its belly and it's bled out in the field. I don't like those photos. I don't like those emails. So I feel like we're just trying to do the best thing for the area in Stokes County.
And, deer jump 8-foot fence, yeah, I've seen it. Very hard for them to do. It's very few that can do it. But if you're worried about the small wildlife, don't worry about that. They'll find their way through that fence right there, even if it's chain link right there. But I would be more concerned on the personal side.
May I speak to that?
Yeah.
Earlier on the first, the concern was a toddler fitting through there. My neighbor on the right side has a 1-year-old, and the circumference of the baby's head was about 15.5 inches. And I found a cantaloupe 15.5 inches around, and it without a doubt slid through there. But I question if that toddler has the wherewithal to crawl out of the stroller, crawl over the railroad tracks. We're averaging 300 feet between the chain link fence and the railroad tracks. all the way around. Some more, some less, but that's a football field's distance between the two. My other neighbor has a 6-year-old son. Measured his head this morning, 20.5 inches. I did not have any fruit for that, but this came off my front porch, and this is pretty close to 20.5 inches in circumference. I can manipulate this fence all day long. But no matter which way I put it, that head is not fitting through the fence. And even if that child were so motivated to bend this out, it's still a challenge to get his head through. Now what are his shoulders going to do? I understand the need for safety.
But the climbing aspect,
With all due respect, sir, I'm 41, I'm still climbing chain link fences. Work boots and all. I can do it. I just
places you ain't supposed to go.
Find a corner place. Well, you know, sometimes I don't have my bolt cutters in the truck, and I gotta get in. And the only way to do it is to climb over.
But there's still, as far as what y'all presented originally to the county, the biggest difference between the 8-foot chain link and the 8-foot woven wire, what's the biggest aspect of why y'all want to get it changed? Is it just wildlife?
We're a solar company. It's chock full of, lack of better terms, tree huggers and hippies. My heart goes out to them. I used to be that way when I was in the 20s. The more I get older, the more conservative I'm becoming. But it's just that extra initiative our company is trying to make for that feel-good aspect of the projects. We don't like the chain link with the barbed wire for the wildlife injuries, but also it's
Which is very few. There are very few. But they can get caught on any fence like that. Even with something like that right there, I've seen one get their leg caught in it trying to get over. And they're sitting there dangling from the fence.
I can't say it's not.
I've seen it, yeah.
If I was building a distribution size project that covered 40 acres, I'd save y'all's time. I'd save my breath. But the fact that we're covering over 400 acres, that's a lot of area. Just that piece alone, 24,000 feet. That's a lot of area we're covering.
It is. And I know it's a big cost savings too, but that's what I say. I'm just looking at the part as far as our citizens, we have to watch out for them. We want something to keep people out. And that's what I say. The animals will still find their way in. I'm kind of looking at more what y'all originally proposed with the 8'9" chain link. But that's all I have on it. Y'all have any more? Commissioner Barnacastle?
When y'all presented this in 2019, did y'all know about this type fencing then?
No, sir. It was a project that originally was started on in fall of 2018, I believe. At the time we were before the board, it had not been fully adopted, or at least me or none of us on these teams knew that this was part of this, intended to be part of this project. So I wish we'd known about it at the time. I would like to expand on what we did present at the time. Almost every jurisdiction that I've ever been in where there is a fencing requirement spelled out, it's always been 6 feet with barbed wire. Walnut Cove is, as Karen touched on, this project covers both jurisdictions, spans both jurisdictions there. Walnut Cove had this 8-foot plus 2 more feet of barbed wire on top, making it for a total of 10 feet, which is really nothing that I've never seen that anywhere else. And I mean, speaking frankly, I think it's a little bit over the top, overkill maybe. And so when we got to Stokes County to request approval here, we went ahead and said that we would use that 8 feet plus the 2 additional feet for consistency. So we were going to go ahead and eat that additional, the higher, stricter requirement there. That originated from the Walnut Cove ordinance. We never would have proposed that high in the first place. So that was the thinking for why we presented it that way. We didn't have this Nature Conservancy plan fully hatched out yet, and we were trying to be consistent with Walnut Cove. But now we've received variances from Walnut Cove, so that now this 8 foot plus 2 feet requirement is kind of just hanging out there. We pulled it from an ordinance that no longer applies, really.
So, I think this is y'all's first solar panel y'all put in? Is that what I'm taking from this?
Is this our first project?
Yes.
No, sir.
Or what type fence did you use on the other projects?
It varies from 6-foot chain link with 1 foot of barbed wire, or 8-foot chain link with no barbed wire. And then, I guess within the past few years, we're going to the wildlife.
Okay, so am I seeing this more wildlife friendly or cost friendly?
Well,
Where I
nowadays,
go with this.
nowadays my prices only last 24 hours. So commodities and that, everything's through the roof. I don't have cost savings in this project at all right now, other than time. That's about the only thing that's gonna save me.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Can I ask one quick question? Commissioner Barney-Castle, did you say 2000, go back to the date in the beginning, did you say 2019?
19.
And was your response that, because I'm reading right here under the wildlife permeable fencing paragraph, it says Pine Gate installed wildlife-friendly fencing on 2 Pine Gate solar sites in North Carolina in 2018, which is the first time this practice has been implemented in the state. So is 2018 according to this paragraph here I'm looking at, or are we looking at 2019? Did you say 2019, Commissioner Barney-Castle? was-
2019 is when they presented to y'all. I
So
wasn't here.
you had placed 2 Pine Gate solar sites in 2018, is that correct? That's what I'm reading from.
That's right, sir. I think I misspoke about that a minute ago. I think you're absolutely spot on.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I didn't miss, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I actually went back and looked at their meetings in 19, and then I got involved this year, so I wanted to get myself familiar with what was going on here. So,
Absolutely. If there's any questions I can answer or share more details, I'd be happy to. I've been with this project. I was just telling Karen, I think this is my after going through some rezoning in Walnut Cove, and then a CUP hearing, and then we've been before this board. I've certainly got to know this county. I think we've had maybe 10 hearings on this project, at least from my end. So I've been with it from the beginning, and I'm happy to share any background about the project.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Chris Morris? You finished, Ron?
Yes, sir.
From those who follow proceedings around here, they probably know that I'm not a proponent of these solar farms in the first place, these industrial sites that they come put in our county. But that being said, I voted for this one, and the main reason I did was because, even though I have my own opinions about them, the Walnut Cove folks seem to be very comfortable with putting in the solar farm of this scale down there. So I didn't really want to force my opinion on them. So since the two were connected, I did vote for this one. As far as, so I'm not a real solar farm in the farmland kind of proponent. But that being said, if both fences meet all the requirements from those who set requirements for safety and wildlife and all these other things, I'm not inclined to kind of micromanage what kind of fence you guys have. I sort of don't care, to be honest with you, as long as it meets all of the regulatory requirements and so forth. I'm inclined to, if Walnut Cove thought it was okay for their part of the solar farm, then as far as I'm concerned, it's okay for our part. Another point, the planning board that we have here also, I think unanimously approved it, so I normally try to support them whenever they go through this process, and they didn't have a problem with it, so I would probably support doing either fence.
The only thing I would say is, just by looking at it, it doesn't look as sturdy. It's not going to last as long. I don't know much about it, and I can tell that. But, so, I mean, you may save money on the front end, but you may end up costing you more in the long run when you have to replace when it doesn't last. But I'm not, I don't think it has to be 8 foot tall with 2 feet of razor wire like originally suggested. I would be fine with a shorter fence, but I still think it needs to be the 9 gauge, what you originally said, but maybe not as tall. That was Walnut Cove's requirement. I wasn't even on here then, so.
Questions, comments with? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And again, we'll provide a condition to address your comment about making sure that the fence remains in good repair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to item C.
Let Session know what to do with it. Remember to move it to action for next meeting to discuss it more, or what's the board doing with that item?
Move to action next
I think
meeting.
I'm ready to move to action.
Tonight,
Personally, no, to the next meeting.
next meeting. Everybody good with that?
Next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Moving it to action at the next meeting.
Is there something we can do and decide on tonight? I'm looking at an 8-week lead time. If I place my purchase order tonight to get any material on site, I'm desperate for an answer. If that doesn't suit the county's needs, can we talk about, 8-foot chain link, no barbs? I lost 2 weeks from the first to today, and I can't afford to lose 2 more weeks.
I'd be fine with entertaining that.
He's willing to adapt, is what I'm hearing, adapt to the suggestion that Commissioner, our chairman made. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. So we would first obviously request that we have the wildlife fence with the chain link around the public road and the public park, as we mentioned. We would prefer that this not be the decision because we think it will not be as good for the project. But in order to have a vote this evening, we would accept a fence without the barbed wire at the top. But we would really ask that the board consider what will be best for the area with the wildlife friendly fence.
And if that's the case, I think we'd have to make an adjustment to what was on the minutes from at our other meeting, because it had specified in the original proposal 8 foot with 2 foot of barbed wire, which I agree 2 foot of barbed wire is ridiculous, but tonight it would be pretty much taking a vote on the environmental fence or not, or going back to what was originally proposed.
Because what you did in the planning meeting, which we approved that, you're changing that anyway, you would, however you vote, whether, unless you leave it the same, unless you leave the barbed wire fence with the tall fence. So you can certainly change it. I mean, you can move it to action and vote, decide how you'd like it to be as a board and vote on that. I mean, you can vote first on that fence if you want, and then vote on what you'd like, or you can make a motion to vote for the 8-foot fence without the barbed wire. I mean, and then you can vote on that. If that doesn't carry, you can make another motion and vote on how they have it presented here. But you don't need to do anything different than that.
Does the board wish to have this on the action agenda tonight?
Well, I'm willing to go ahead if I'm hearing urgency coming from the speaker for a decision tonight, and with our ability to vote. And then if the vote doesn't carry and we can make another motion, I'm willing to do it tonight.
Okay.
And for the first vote, I'd just like to again point out that all of the equipment within the solar farm itself has to meet the National Electric Code and to be secured and locked and safe. And we will agree to a condition to address your concern about maintenance of the wildlife-friendly fence.
I guess we would need a consensus to move it to action, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
As the board feel?
Go ahead.
Good? All right. We'll put that down as item G. All right, we'll now move on to item C, more top part request. Mr. Stuart Easter.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, the overcrowding at the Moortop Park continues to be an issue. Last year at the July 13th meeting, the board approved to allow the Public Works Department to create an alternate parking plan to help alleviate the pressures of parking and eliminate the dangerous roadside parking. We are continuing to do that as of now. And while this helps the parking situation, it does not solve the overcrowding and safety issues we are experiencing, especially on the weekends during the peak times. We have a serious problem with littering, as well as noise from loud music. And I don't think there's any kind of regulations on the loud music, but we're getting a lot of people just blaring loud music, and when we approach them, they don't want to listen to us. So we've had to, call the sheriff's department on many occasions. Our staff is not equipped to handle these situations, so that's why we're contacting the sheriff's department. I'd like to request that we have a deputy on site on the weekends, as we did on Memorial Day weekend. And I want to thank Sheriff Lemons for, putting somebody down there. That really did helped a lot. I've had a lot of comments from the citizens and the staff that helped a tremendous amount on Memorial Day weekend. Also, I would like to propose that we lock the gates at this park. Sometime 9:30 or 10 o'clock. I don't think anybody's got any business being down there after 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. I think that's just asking for trouble. Now, during the weekday, there's not a lot of people in there, but the weekend, from what I've seen and what I've been told, people like to ramble in there after hours. And so I'd like to propose that we could come up with some kind of resolution or some kind of an idea on a time that we could lock it up. I'm willing to work with Sheriff Lemons any way possible for my staff and working with his staff to ensure that we've got a safe place for all the citizens of Stokes County to enjoy the Moortop Park.
Sheriff Lemons is on board.
I've not spoken with him directly. I've reached out and left him a message, but I've not spoken with him directly since. But I think he would be.
I'll tell you, as many phone calls I've received over is, I fully agree with you on that. Anybody else on the board have a question or comment on it?
I do.
Mr. Mendenhall.
And I also have received several calls on this. When you publish your home and cell phone number in the newspaper and say call anytime, they take you up on it. So I have received several phone calls concerning this issue, and I was glad to see it on the discussion agenda tonight, because, when you tell a person that you will certainly try to get it discussed, I've got 4 or 5 people right now that are looking at this meeting, and I'm glad it's on here. Stuart, one thing I want to make sure is you're talking about the fence to be secured and locked going down to the river, and also the fence that goes to the Moortop iron furnace,
Yes,
both
sir.
of those fences.
Yes, sir. It's 2 gates.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah.
And you're talking about making sure both are secure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you would come up, what would be your suggestion, Mr. Easter, 9:30, or what?
Well, I want to give people time, if they're upriver floating down. I'm thinking 9:30, or maybe even 10. I just kind of want to get a group consensus of what everybody feels would be a good time. I don't want to strand anybody, but if we have signs that specifically say, hey, this gate's going to lock at a specific time, it's their responsibility to read the sign and get back and get their car out. If not, I guess they can get it the next morning. But, I don't want to have anybody stranded, but I'd say, you know, I don't think anybody has any business in there after 9 myself, but, you know, maybe 9:30 to give them time. It's usually dark by 9 o'clock, and if somebody's on the river after 9 and it's dark, they shouldn't be there anyway. You know, that's just asking for trouble. And if we go back to the littering part of it, Tori May brought me it's a link that the park uses for some of their trash cans. It's like they call it a paw-proof, and I'd like to look in at getting some of those. That way the critters can't get in the trash at night. They're lockable. And also Will has been in contact with Machine and Welding of Danbury to see what they can build these for. So this is just another option to help with the littering. I think most people takes their trash to the trash can, but when it starts piling over, and then my staff leaves, and then the critters come in there at night, and they just scatter it everywhere. And then we spend half a day down there on Monday morning picking up trash and trying to round it all up. And I feel like this right here would probably help with that part of it too. But from what I've seen the last month or so, the park, we need to put a little attention to that park. It's just anything that we do, I think, will help.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Going back to your time, or I just happened to be in Surrey County for the last couple of months, and both events were in their parks, and they had a sign up 8:30. Gates closed at 8:30.
8:30.
So 9 o'clock wouldn't be out of the question to do that at 9 o'clock. But there again, you know, we, not being a devil's advocate here, but we preach tourism. I've heard that from everybody that ran for office, and we got the people coming, and I understand where you're coming from. But with the deputy being there on the weekend, that is more cost for the sheriff. So we gotta keep that in mind as well. That guy's gonna be paid overtime to work down there. So that's another cost we gotta look at. But I understand what you're talking about. I've been down there, I've seen it myself. So, I don't go personally because it's just too overcrowded. But, you know, but I really understand what you're saying.
Do you think adding those trash receptacles plus maybe some additional ones, like over on the overflow parking, I don't know if there's any over on that side that might help. Maybe people, you know, don't want to carry their trash home or something. They're just sitting it out there. I don't know. That would be something to add some additional trash receptacles.
Yeah, I think that would help a lot. And and another idea is kind of came up and been brought to me, the picnic shelter or the big shed. We're, I think maybe the Y up here keeps track of who rents it or whatever. You know, that could be a revenue right there for the county. You know, we could charge to rent that, and not a tremendous amount, you know, $20, $25. I think that's just another little something that could be done down there too, so.
Since you bring that point up, I think a lot of people contact Tori Maeve on that. Is that correct, Jake?
That's correct.
And who's over it now? Is it somebody at the Y or something? I've had some people say it's hard for them to get in touch with anybody to get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any way to move that over to Tori? Let him kind of handle that?
Well, but it's in your recreation contract, so
It
the
is.
YMCA to
Yes.
take care of it. So that's what you're approving on action tonight, is to amend that, just the
You
dates
have to
that
make an
mentioned
amendment
here.
on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's on, and the website's almost ready to go up, the new one. It'll be a lot easier to find that tab where it's the Moortalk Park Shelter Rentals on there. It has the number. They can leave a message and they call them back, because typically it's not an emergency that you have to talk to somebody today you want to rent a shelter. I think that'll fix some of that problem too. But if you could certainly change it, but it is part of what you pay for in that recreation contract.
Okay. Commissioner Morris?
Yeah, Stuart, do you think by blocking the cars out, shutting the gates, that'll take care of the problem of people being in there that shouldn't be, or for the most part, pretty sure?
Well, it will keep them from driving in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't I feel like anybody that's up to no good, that can get in there with a vehicle, they can get in there. I don't feel like they're gonna park up on the side of the road. They can do that. They can park on the side of the road and jump the gate and go in there and do whatever. But I just feel like it would help to keep a vehicle out, people pulling in there and sitting. And if they're
I
sitting
agree.
in the car,
I agree
they're up
with
to
you.
no good at that time of night.
I agree with you, and I agree with Wayne about shutting it at 9 o'clock as well. I don't think, what time does Hanging Rock shut theirs? Is it sundown, or they got a?
I'm not sure, Rick.
I know they lock their
It
gate.
says dusk to dawn, I think.
They vary their hours. Right now, in the High Point, they were the first park in the state to start closing at 10 o'clock during the summer.
Okay.
I thought it was 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the fall, it's like 7, 8, and 9, depending on when the.
Okay. Well, 9 o'clock seems like a reasonable time that people should be out of there, I would think.
And we could update the signs. I want to update the signs anyway. I think the signs look terrible. I'm just going to be honest with you. They've had no attention. The signs need updating. So, yeah.
And I also agree with having a deputy down there on weekends. I think that's really important to do.
And I don't want to take any credit from what the sheriff did Memorial Day weekend. They did that. We added this to I just put it in here just to, and we appreciate what they did, so.
I'm getting ready to call him up here anyway. Derek, do you have, Stuart, do you have any information on, I know we're going to go ahead and into our,
What are you gonna
and with
do?
this right here, do y'all want to,
Before you move on this, I'm sorry.
y'all want to put this on action tonight? Is this something that's kind of pushing? You want to go ahead and get started right away? Everybody okay with putting this on action tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, and then that kind of gets us into item D, and I think we have Tori Maeve here as well. He could probably answer any questions. Not sure how many phone calls or how many contacted you guys. Evidently, we got a motorboating problem on the river. We had a gentleman that was, I've had videos sent to me that was speeding down the river. And it looks like a lot of citizens is wanting something done. I'm kind of looking for recommendations on this. I don't know of any kind of restrictions we have on that river about it. And I know when we advertise this, we advertise it for tubing and kayaking and stuff. And I do understand there are just a few people that have property on the river, and they've got just like a little motor to get them doing a little fishing deal, which ain't no big deal at all. It's less than idle. So, I'm kind of looking at maybe we need to put some kind of restriction on there so that nobody gets hurt or seriously injured or even killed coming flying around one of these curves of the river. And I think one woman had told me she had her young child in a canoe with her, and the canoe about turned over when he came through and made a huge wake. So with that, I'll just kind of open that up. And one thing I may be looking at this is maybe just putting everything to kind of help with the fishermen we have in the county that has to be at idle speed and no faster. But if you guys have some suggestion on that as well, I'll just put it on the agenda for us to discuss.
Well, I've had some calls on that too. And I told them when I saw the agenda that we'd be discussing it tonight, so I'm sure it's good to see you on YouTube. I know you're watching this meeting, and I hope we can come to a resolution that will be satisfactory.
I had several calls on it as well, pictures sent to me, and I replied to them. I didn't know of any ordinance whatsoever we had not allowing motorboats on the river. But I guess the part bothered me the most when I saw that picture was they were having a baptizing, and this guy comes right behind them.
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean, where have we lost respect at in this world, But if we're going to do tubing and kayaking and all that, I don't see where people should be on there with a motorboat, because you could hit somebody easy with one of them things. So, again, that's just something we'll have to talk about.
Commissioner Moore,
The only question would be what authority we have to regulate the river.
That's correct.
I thought that was.
I thought about that too.
Federal government.
who put the regulations about the no alcohol on the river?
We did that. I don't know if we can regulate motorcraft on the river.
Some money from like North Carolina Wildlife too. It might be a wildlife endangerment issue too, because the river's really shallow in spots. I mean, that's probably the first course of action that I would take, and then then we could check certainly like legally if you could do an ordinance banning that. But I'd probably start with the wildlife people.
Yeah.
that's probably gonna be the best way to get that done.
I have a contact with the Wildlife Commission that I could call and ask.
Would you mind
Yeah.
getting in touch with them and get back with us on
You think,
some?
Kyle? I mean, I think that'd be a good place to start. See wildlife.
If you're dealing with a navigable waterway, maybe limited.
Yeah, we had some issue come up one time. It had to do with Blues Lake and regulating something on Blues Lake.
Something I need to check into,
Yeah, but there's some, I think there's some
how much you can.
Well, some guy can say,
limitations on what you can do.
you know, some guy can say, I got a flat bottom boat, I ain't got with a 5 horsepower motor on it. You know, why can't I put it on there? There you go.
I think when you research it, it'll be real clear whether we can do it or not.
Exactly.
Anybody know what they ended up charging that guy with?
I've not heard.
I heard they,
It's court dates, I think, next week.
I don't know what the charges were. I think something needs to be done. Sure.
Stuart, appreciate you looking into that for us and see what you can find out for us.
Thanks, sir.
Thank y'all.
So with that right there, we're just gonna kind of push it off until he gets back with us.
Yeah, you can put it back on discussion, and then if for some reason you don't know enough to talk about it again, you can always push it out, but you should be able to find out some information by the time you meet again on the 28th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stuart, could you get with her, if you ain't quite got any answers yet, could you get with Amber, Shannon? That way if it ain't quite ready, we'll just push it off the agenda.
I'll call my contacts tomorrow.
Okay.
I can look at it.
Can you check on the legal side of it?
All right. Appreciate it, guys. All right, move on to item E, the NCACC voting delegate, Ms. Amber Brown.
So our request was received from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners to designate the voting delegate for Stokes County for the annual conference in August. So the board will need to decide who will be the voting delegate and also the alternate voting delegate for that.
I nominate Commissioner Cox.
I'll second that.
Take care of it.
I've had to do that a couple of times myself.
Mr. Barneycastle,
Sir,
you agree with Cox?
absolutely.
Mr. Morris? All right.
Got it?
And I say Commissioner Barneycastle is the alternate.
Somehow I knew that was coming.
You know, when you first get on.
Oh, yeah.
you
Oh,
get-
yeah, they got it.
Yeah, gotta pay our dues.
And I think all of you indicated that you were at that conference except for Commissioner Morris, I think.
Therefore, I won't be the voting.
You're off the hook.
You got off
But I
of
think
that.
everybody else, that's the one in August in New
Is that
Hanover.
August 11th through the 13th?
15th, I think. I've got, the way I've got you scheduled, yeah, I think the actual conference is 11th through the 15th. But I'll send you the dates for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody good with those two?
I'm sure they are.
I can see the excitement on your face, so.
Y'all better tell me how y'all wanna vote.
That's easier to do.
I trust your judgment. All right. Item S, Centennial Celebration of Historic Walnut Cove Colored School Proclamation. Ms. Amber Brown.
So the Walnut Cove Colored School Board of Directors requested that the Stokes County Board of Commissioners provide a proclamation in recognition of the centennial celebration of the historic Walnut Cove School. So they asked Commissioner Mendenhall present the proclamation on their event on Juneteenth. They called Rosenwald Day, since he has ties to Walnut Cove. So if we can just, discuss this item and move it to the agenda for today, so we can pass it in time for Juneteenth. That'd be good.
All right, any discussion on this? Everybody good with it? All right,
Good.
you need to move today.
Yeah, just so you know, just move to the action agenda for today. We can move that to item I on the action agenda.
Yep.
If that's, you'll have a consensus.
Each was a tough work. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move to item G, the updated dynamic investment incentive resolution. Ms. Shannon Shaver.
I'll do that one because I've been pretty involved in that one. So you approved this investment incentive back March 8th of 2021 for the Dynamic Company in King, and working with the city of King on that. They're getting almost prepared. There's been some kind of issues going on with some conversation between their attorneys and getting some just kind of the fine tuning done on that. So it kind of brought back the resolution with a few amendments to it. There's not anything really major in it, but the new updated copy will need to be approved because it's not going to be in line with what's there anymore. And this will actually become part of the agreement once you see that on your upcoming agenda after you do the public hearing. So if you look at you've got a new updated one and the original one. In number 1 on the first sheet there, they've added that part there where they added the not to exceed 5,000 part. They've added on line 5 on the second page, changed the date to 2023 because this is government's working together and it's going to take longer than until 2022. So it's extended out a year now. And that's really the only thing that's changed in the whole thing. So we'll just need to review that, make sure you're okay with how that looks now. And you can certainly move that to action at the next meeting and approve that. But we would like for you this evening to direct Ms. Brown to call a public hearing for citizen input on this. We were going to do that a while back, but when the delay came on the resolution, it took a little time. So if you could direct her to do that for the meeting on July 12th, that'll give her plenty of time to go along with all the requirements for notice to the paper and all that and having the paper for 10 days. And by that time, you will have approved your resolution, which is fine, but on your July 12th meeting, by then, you will have seen a copy of the agreement, which is what you'll be taking citizen input on for the public hearing. So if you could, let us know about any concerns you have about the new amended resolution and also direct her to call that public hearing for July 12th, at which time you'll have seen your amended, that agreement for that.
Okay, any questions, comments on this? All right.
So we'll move the resolution to action for the next meeting.
Yes.
And everybody's okay with doing the public hearing on July 12th?
Correct.
And we'll get that to the paper notified and all that. So.
Okay. All right, we now move to our action agenda. Item A, the transportation for TSS and senior services. Have a motion on this?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And just to clarify, you're approving Wabeni as your primary transportation vendor, and those other two that are listed as your secondaries with no guaranteed hours to anybody.
Correct. All right, item B, the veterinarian contract. Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, item C, the YMCA recreation contract. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Item D, the Pine Hall campus lease and operating agreement. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Item E, the county manager contract. Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a change to this right here, if it's all right with the board. That the board will allow me to go a little earlier than the 6 months that I had requested.
60.
But if it was displeasing with the board and everything's okay, I would love for my last day to be August the 6th.
Say it one more time.
I didn't hear that, Joe.
August the 6th would be my last day here at Foote County. And I'm also requesting that from that time on that you would appoint Shannon Shaver as interim county manager to take care of things until you guys come up with a county manager that you'd like to have. Shannon has agreed to come back. I'm also requesting that she would come in on the 9th of August, which would be a Monday, and that she would start in with the current county manager's salary as it is existing in the new salary study. With that, I hope you would move forward with that and it can go through the next board meeting. It's not necessary it's done tonight, but I do need time to allow me to set up my retirement with the state, so
Okay.
it'd be okay. I'd like to move forward with that.
Well, with that, do I have a motion with the changes that were presented from our county manager?
You saying, do you have a motion to move it to action, or you saying, go ahead, it's in action?
Right.
You saying, go ahead and take a vote tonight on the recommendation by our county manager as far as the date change and the
Correct.
personnel change?
Correct.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
What's the motion again?
It, basically, it's going through with the contract, but our manager will be leaving on August 6th of 2021, and Ms. Shannon Shaver will come in and fill his spot from August 9th. Did I hear correct?
Interim.
As an interim to kind of fill that in until we find somebody new. Or find
And
somebody.
if I did that, if you all choose to do that, it would do away with the contract that I have now to keep working with Amber, so, because I would obviously be doing that anyway, if, you know, if we're working here together, and we've been working a lot together anyway, so it wouldn't really change that.
How long would the interim position last? Do you have thoughts on that, Shannon?
I don't have any thoughts on that, because I don't have a plan for that, so that would be up to you all.
I have a motion to second. Any more discussion on it?
Okay, what is we're voting on? To just,
Yes,
for Shannon to be interim for an amount of time to be determined before we advertise?
Well, we have to take him and replace it, so I guess it'll be until we can get the replacement for it.
Yeah, or whatever, however you do it, if you appoint, or if you put out things, or however you choose to do it from there.
And so we'll have a discussion later on when we're going to advertise for it.
Just gives you a little more time to think about it, I guess, in terms of having to do it if he's gonna go out for August the 6th.
Yeah, so this will be like a transition thing. That sounds good.
But you did say 60 months. All right, have a motion, second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item F, let's see. Offer to purchase tax surplus property.
Sorry, did you have something?
I'm sorry, who seconded that one?
I do.
Wayne,
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Barnacus.
You watch it, it's over there,
Okay. The item F, the offer to purchase tax surplus property. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Item G, with the original request to change it to the environmental fencing, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay. Was the,
You all don't require a second, so you can still vote. on
okay,
it. You will still vote on it even though there's not a second.
My motion was just to approve for further discussion, basically.
Okay.
well, the first motion, is that right there to change the request, what they was wanting to request modification? And then they said something about they really needed something tonight, so we could put out a alternate modification form if needed. On the original request for it to change it to the environmental fence, and I had one motion on it. Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. What's
I'll
it?
make a motion that, they could, use the 8-foot fence without the razor wire.
Okay, so you,
Razor
Put
wire.
chain link.
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So in your motion, you're saying they're okay to go with 8-foot 9-gauge chain link without barbed wire, correct?
Correct.
Amber, did you get this motion?
Yeah.
The 8-foot
No,
chain
no.
link, no barbed wire. You made a motion?
Yeah.
Even though one's not needed, I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And can we clarify what the original motion was? Was it to approve as presented with the fence and like they had it, or you say further discussion?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's what I was making a motion for,
As they presented it?
as they presented it, yeah.
Okay, so you could, okay.
And for discussion, if anybody had any additional.
Thank you.
Okay. Item H, more type part requests. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And item I, Centennial Celebration of Historic Walnut Cove Color School Proclamation. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Ms. Amber, if you would, please read the rationale for closed session.
The rationale for closed session is to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3, and as also to consider and take action with respect to the position to be taken by the county in negotiating the price or other material terms of an agreement for the acquisition or lease of real property pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A5.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Do I have a motion to go into closed?
Motion to go into close.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're closed.
Yeah, you've been, muting. Just go audio, like you've been doing, just mute everything.
and learned.
All right. If there's no further discussion, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, my son said, "What would you think?"